today we have in the interview Commander Vikram Rajan, who has served in Indian Navy for more than 2 decades as a submariner, as a group testing officer, and currently he has a venture of SSB Ducks where he trains the aspirants. So today we'll try to understand his journey in Indian Navy as a GT officer and his entrepreneurial venture. So welcome, sir. Thank you for coming on the interview today.
Thank you very much, Akash, for inviting me for this wonderful session, which we'll have, and hope all the aspirants who are there would, at least at the end of it, would have some takeaways with them when they are all pursuing their dreams of becoming part of the elite defense forces of the Army, Navy, and the Air Force. Yes.
How was the life of a submariner in terms of your perspective? How does it feel to be a underwater warrior? How does it feel to be?
So we call ourselves as the sentinels of the deep, and the Indian Navy's submarine arm is one of the most elite arms in the whole of the world, and it's a complete volunteer organization. And I remember I am a part of the Indian Naval Academy. At that time, it was in Goa. And we were all taken to various ships, aircrafts, and submarines. And after that, we were training in Tir. And that is the first time in my life I was able to go into a submarine which was based out of Bombay. And that set me thinking, yes, this could be an arm where I want to be in the future. Prior to joining the Navy, I was impressed by the movie Top Gun, as many of us are. And at that time, the aspirations were to fly high, like the movie Top Gun. Yeah, I mean, this intrigued me. And somewhere the first seeds of joining the submarine arm was set in there. And thereafter, luckily for me, after finishing my training as I was a midshipman, the first ship that I was posted to was called as INS Amba. Okay. It's now decommissioned. It was a mothership, you call it, for all the submarines for their logistic support. It's a very, very unique ship. And there I got to meet a lot of submariners who were posted out there. And that really inspired me. And that made me decide firmly that, yes, I want to become part of the submarine arm. And yes, since then, it has been one roller coaster road right throughout the submarine arm. And became part of the submarine arm in the year 1995. Yes, we have our training base at INS Satvana in Visakhapatnam, where we have to go our basic submarine training and the escape training school. We have got a very unique feature which is not available in many parts of the world. And very few navies have got this escape training school, where they actually simulate as to how you escape out of a submarine in case it is sunk underwater. So you have to clear that. That tells you whether you are claustrophobic or not, or whether you can handle the rigors of the submarine life. And went cleared that with flying colors, and thereafter became part of the submarine arm after doing my basic submarine training. Okay. And yeah, I mean, every day that I spent out there was an adventure in itself. I mean, the kind of things that we were able to do and experience is phenomenal. I mean, I remember many friends of mine who were part of the surface Navy ships and the aviators, the flyboys. I mean, they always were always curious to know as to how this life in a submarine is. And let me tell you, I mean, like, it's a completely different world underwater. Mm-hmm. And one of the important things that you learn is to have the grit and the stamina and the patience to sweat it out underwater. Yeah.
Sir, if you can just tell us, how was your journey of joining Indian Navy? How did you decide? What motivated you to join Indian Navy?
See, I come from a semi kind of defense background. A couple of my uncles were there in the Navy before I joined, and a couple of them were in the Army. So somewhere it was always there. I was always impressed by the uniforms. But I'm a South Indian from Karnataka, hardcore Bangalore, but born and brought up in Delhi. And all these people used to keep coming and going and visiting us when I was a small child. And that always impressed me. But nothing concrete had taken place by then. It was one time when I had gone to see a naval band in play in one of the beating retreats, which was there on the 26th of January ke baad, after the 3 days, the beating. And I remember, I mean, that really impressed me.
Mhm.
And from then on, I always wanted to be part of the Navy. But somehow it didn't materialize after the 12th class. And I waited for doing my graduation, which I did from Delhi University.
Okay.
And thereafter, uh, all other people were planning to give their entrance exam for IIMs. And I was planning to give my entrance exam for IMA. So that is where the paths changed. And I gave my CDS exam and thereafter qualified. And I was part of I got cleared from 12 SSB Bangalore, and I am a repeater. I mean, I got conferenced out in 33 SSB Bhopal. And thereafter, that is the time I realized, yes, what this thing is all about. Though I knew some part of it, but there it actually hit me. This requires a little bit of preparation, a little bit of more introspection, and a little bit of more understanding about yourself. And then the next time when I came to 12 SSB Bangalore, I mean, I was fully prepared and passed out the whole thing with full josh.
Mhm.
And I still remember when I got recommended and I was waiting for my merit list. And my mother told me one thing: you are joining the Navy, don't go into deeper waters.
Mhm.
So I joined the submarine out thereafter. So yeah. So that was the journey, and I was a non-swimmer. I mean, between the merit list and going to the joining academy, I learned my swimming, so that I thought this would be an important aspect in the whole journey. And yes, believe you me, it was really important, because right at the beginning, I mean, like, we were made to jump from all over the places to into the swimming pool, and thereafter in Tir, jumping from the uh, ships onto the sea and getting trained, and all those things, the preparation of mine helped me in my training also. Yes.
Sir, if you can put some light on, your academy life in Indian Naval Academy, how was it? If some memorable experience that you have, which you would like to share from the INA life.
Yeah, see, I was obviously from the CDS thing, so I was a graduate. And there you get an overstudy, all youngsters from the 10+2 NDA kind of thing. At that time, the training was done in Goa. We were Now it has shifted to Painur, Indian Naval Academy, Painur in Kerala. During that time, it was in Goa. And I'm part of the 43rd ICC course. It had newly started, this course. We were the third batch of that, and 43rd ICC. And I mean, like, I remember, I mean, going there and getting down in front of the gate of the Naval Academy. It was an uphill road towards the gates of the Goa. INS Mandovi, it was called then. And it is still there, but it is used for something else, the training for something else. So INS Mandovi, and we were all very styled. We have got recommended, and now we'll become officers. But the moment you land up there, all your trunks are put in one place, and then you start rolling. And then by rolling, you keep going to the place where the barber shop is there, and you get your first katora cut. That's what we call them, and zero cut. And then the life starts. And memorable moment, yeah, I remember I was a very thin, underweight kind of cadet, and I mean, and if you actually look at my photographs out then, I mean, I could be a famished kind of from the malnourished kind of place I'm coming to. But you will not believe it. With the kind of exercise and the training that was there, I could polish off 1 pound of bread in my breakfast. I mean, like, that was the capacity and the kind of calories that you required. And we had a lot of fun in the academy. And the whole time was trying to escape and not to get caught doing something wrong, or not adhering to timings. So it was from one Rangada session to the other Rangada session, to some studies. And all those people who thinks defense or Navy is all about just adventure, there are a lot of studies in it, a lot of technical studies, a lot of concepts, a lot of tactics, strategy, and all that. And so the time completely was spent between either getting a ragda or studying on some concepts in the naval this thing. So yeah, I mean, every day was a memorable moment, and I still remember the day of passing out from the Naval Academy and getting ready to go to INS Tir in Cochin, which is still there. And that training after the Naval Academy, the Tir, I still remember. We joined the academy on the 28th of December somewhere. And we were on board ships the first time. We were posted there as cadets, cadets out there, sea cadets, that we used to call ourselves. And the 31st, we said we will have a good New Year bash on board the ship. And 12 o'clock, we were polishing our shoes. And the New Year passed. Thereafter, we were polishing our shoes for the next 1 hour to ensure that you can see your face through the polished boots, the drill boots that we have. And 10 minutes, the water was open to take bath. And thereafter, by 1 o'clock, we were all asleep, fast asleep for the next day training. So that is how the whole training started on board INS Tir.
Okay. Yeah. So my next question is basically, see somebody joins as a Navy officer in Indian Navy. How does one opt for the submarine arm, and what is the process looks like in terms? I've read that there is some psychological test, some medical standards as well. So how does that process look like?
See, as such, there is no psychological test per se, but once you become an officer, you do your basic courses, training courses, you're there. So there are three branches, if you know, there are three major branches in the Navy. That is the executive branch, which is the fighting arm of the Navy. Then you've got the electrical branch, which looks after the maintenance of the electrical systems on board. And then you have got the engineering branch, which looks after the engineering aspects and maintenance of the equipment as far as engineering features are concerned. So all these three people, after doing their basic courses and after doing their standard sea time on board any ship, you can volunteer for the submarine arm. It's a completely volunteer organization. So once you get volunteered for that, then the medical test takes place, a little more complex, a little more detailed medical tests which is required for you in the submarine arm. And once you qualify that medical test, thereafter you go to INS Satavahana. And the first thing that you do out there is something called as a ETS, Escape Training School. Basically, it's a very unique feature which we have, and where basically there are three types of simulations which take place to see whether you can escape out of a submarine in case of necessity, in case of any issues which happen. And once you qualify that, that is the things where you have the aptitude to stay inside a submarine for long hours, because there you don't see the sunlight. It's a very claustrophobic kind of environment out there with no direct openings to the weather or the atmosphere, or you're in an enclosed capsule. So once you do that, thereafter the theoretical part of the submarine training takes place, the basic submarine course.
Okay.
Once you do that, it's about a 6 months course that you do. Thereafter, you are posted to one of the submarines all over. So we have got two submarine bases. One is in Bombay and one is in Vizag. And you get posted to one odd submarine. Say if there are 10 people, you get one each in the each submarine is there. Then you go, a practical training takes place. So that takes place somewhere between 6 to 8 months. And then you get something called as a submarine watchkeeping ticket.
Okay.
So this submarine watchkeeping ticket is the one which ensures for an executive officer that yes, he can handle the submarine independently. Because in the naval fraternity, whenever you are posted on board any ship or submarine, we have got something called as a watch system. So every 3 hours in the submarine arm and every 4 hours in the ships, there's a change of guard. Some sailers and officers take post to run the submarine, and the other people go and do their normal work. So there's a watch system, 3-tier watch system. So in the watch system, there's one officer who's called as a watchkeeping officer, who is the person who is running the ship on behalf of the commanding officer.
Okay.
So this watchkeeping ticket will ensure that you can become that watchkeeping officer who is running the submarine on behalf of the commanding officer for those 3 hours in the submarine, and it's a 4 hours watch system in the ships. So he can run that. So that is a very, very important aspect of the whole training process. Similarly, for the electrical and the engineering officers who are there in the technical arm, so they have to do again their watchkeeping in the submarine to get that watchkeeping ticket in the submarine arm, so that they can do. So there are 2 watchkeepers on board a submarine. One is the executive watchkeeper and one is the technical watchkeeper.
Okay.
So yeah, both of them do that. So once you do that, thereafter you get your coveted dolphins. So we call it a dolphins. So once you get the dolphin, thereafter you are considered that you have become a true blue submariner. Yes.
So as a submariner, so how does your one ideal day looks like? Any ideal day? How in terms of your routine, how does that look like?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So submarine out at sea, it's a different ball game. So I will discuss that, because once in your harbor, your time is involved in planning for the next sortie, which is there, the next sailing, which is there, and getting the things ready logistically and maintenance, and what kind of exercise we are likely to do in the future. So all those things, plannings are the ones in which we spend our time on to prepare for the next sailing. In the out at sea when we are there, so again it is all about the exercises which we are going to have. So many people ask us, what is it that you do when there is no war around? So it's all about preparing for that war. So the training, we pay a lot of emphasis on training. So train, so that it comes as a second nature to us, so that we can react the right way when the actual situation arises, which has to be handled. And we train for that all 365 days. So on a normal day, there would be some ships or aircrafts with which we would be operating, or some other submarine which we would be operating at, and preparing and simulating different types of exercises out there at the sea. And it could be something like a CASEVAC. It's a casualty evacuation, or something called as RAS, replenishment at sea, or some anti-submarine warfare operations, or some maritime patrol aircraft ke saath some kind of exercise, so that how we can link up together and use some network-centric warfare to ensure detection, ranging, sonar operations, simulated torpedo firing, simulated missile firing. So the whole day out there is doing all these exercises. And again, as I told you, that there is a watch system. So every 3 hours, 1/3 of the ship's company or the submarine's company take post as watchkeepers. The other 2/3 are doing something else, or resting. So once 3 hours are over, the next watch comes into the picture. So the first watch, which was already there, will go and take rest. So like that, every 6 hours your watch comes. So that goes on right throughout.
Okay.
And one more very interesting fact that we have is submarine operations are all done basically in the night. There are night operations, and because of stealth requirements. And if we are going on a long sailing, then what we do is we interchange our days into nights and nights into days, so that we are awake during the nights. So in 1.5 days of our operations, we have not a 24-hour day, we have an 18-hour day, and thereafter a 12-hour day. So every 6 hours we advance, and in 2 or 3 days, the day becomes night and night becomes day. So that for other people, if it is night, 2 o'clock or 2 a.m. in the morning, for us it is afternoon 2 p.m. and we are having our lunch at that time. So the whole routine changes, so that we are alert during the night and sleep during the day. So that is one very unique feature that we have in the submarine arm. Yes. So that is how the routine is.
So if I ask you 3 life lessons which the armed forces, the submarine life has taught you, what will be those 3 life lessons which you would like to share?
See, again, the first important lesson which the submarine arm teaches you is patience and having the mental stamina to withstand the pressures of a solitary submarine life. So that is it. The mental stamina, it builds your mental stamina. The second most important thing is uh, morality, because a lot of things are based on trust and integrity, where every person has got a job to do and he does it without any supervision or instructions. Okay, and that is what. And the third most important lesson, which is hard work always pays. I mean, the submarine arm is one of the most hard-working arms because to maintain a very complex technological marvel called the submarine, it requires a tremendous amount of hard work to maintain those submarines. And let me assure you, each one of us out there in the submarine arm puts in 110% to ensure those weapon platforms are ready for battle at any given time. And that is what it taught me, to never give up. And in fact, one of my mottos of life, which one of my seniors used to have, and I borrowed it from him, and is bash on regardless. So with that motto, the submarine arm goes, and so to take on at whatever cost to be available for the defense of the nation. So that is what it has taught me.
Okay. Sir, you are also a group testing officer, and now you have a academy called SSB Ducks. So if you could briefly tell us, what SSB Ducks does, how is your, way of, guiding the aspirants? How does that look like? If you can just briefly tell that thing.
Yeah. So see, in 2005, I did my GTO training course at DIPR Delhi. It's a DRDO affiliated organization where they teach you about the psychological techniques of the requirements for becoming an SSR. And it's a very, very rigorous course, the GTO training course. And once you do the theoretical course, thereafter you are part of the whole SSR community. And then you do a practical training in one of the SSBs anywhere in the country. It could be Allahabad, Bangalore, Bhopal, or new ones have come in. During my time, these were the 3 main. Now Visakhapatnam has come, Diamond Harbour has come, Gandhinagar has come. Air Force academies were already there, right? Dehradun, Varanasi, and Mysore. Now one has come in Kapurthala, a new one has come. So you can be posted anywhere as a practical training phase. Once you do that, and let me tell you, the selection rate for a GTO is 1 in 10. So 10 people come as GTOs, only 1 gets recommended as a GTO. It's a very tough course because it's an aptitude-based course. So 2005, I cleared my practical training. Again, I give full regard to my instructor, Colonel Sagal of Guards, and he taught me. And then Colonel Chauhan, who again taught me the nuances of the GTO technique. And I take this opportunity to thank them for giving the right guidance. And thereafter, for 12 years, I was a GTO. In Bhopal for 5 years. And in the same 12 SSB from where I got recommended for 6 years. And thereafter, again, 2 years in Coimbatore. NSB Coimbatore, now it is closed. And that is where I retired. So in these 12 years, I have seen all entries, all kind of cadets, all type of people, hundreds and thousands of stage ones, about 20-25,000 stage ones. I have more than 1,000 candidates I have recommended myself in these 12 years. And many of them are, nearly all of them are in various academies, Army, Navy, Air Force, NDA, AFA, and all kinds of situations as far as the whole SSB procedure is concerned. I've been part of it. And somewhere in my 25th year of my service, I decided to see the corporate world, because that was in my bucket list, to see what this corporate world is about. So I did my IIM Ahmedabad course thereafter. Got campus placed in IIM Ahmedabad in a MNC company operating in Bombay. It was an infrastructure company. I was heading their project management head, handling revenues of 3,500 crores till January of 2020. And I was also part of the business development program of theirs in the CIS and the European region and the African region. So that time I decided that no, I think I'll have to give it back to the society and understand and make people understand what leadership is all about. So that is the time I decided to take up a venture and see how this can be taken forward. So the other bucket list came to give it back to the society. And during this time, I am planning to open up a venture called Dux and Ducendi, which will help people to gain leadership roles in the corporate world, and also SSB Dux Academy, which will help the defense aspirants to take leadership roles in the defense forces. So this is a two-pronged approach of mine to help the corporate world and to help the defense to get the right people out there and to make people understand the right thing. So the whole genesis of the whole thing started from here. And a small anecdote which I would like to give here is what is Dux. So Dux and Ducendi is a parent organization. It is basically a Latin word for leader and leadership.
Okay.
So it's a Latin word for leader and leadership, out of which I have taken out the Dux part, which is Latin for leader or a general or a commander who was part of the Roman legion. Okay, so that is where I've taken the name, and I've given an acronym which I truly believe in is direction under experts. So in today's environment, I see in India, there are so many YouTube channels, people giving a lot of gyan, a lot of things floating around in the social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Telegram, Twitter. And I find, I mean, somewhere the children and the students and the aspirants are not able to get the right information as to what we look at out here in the SSB. So my endeavor here is to ensure that you get on the right path, the right direction. If somebody can give the right direction, more than 50% of your problem is solved in life for the aspirants. See, so my thing is not key as to what you have to go do in the SSB. The whole approach of this academy, the Dux Academy, SSB Dux Academy, is about improving your personality. See, many people come to me and say, sir, I have been not recommended last 5 times, 4 times, 6 times, in fact, 24 times, 18 times, all these figures come. Sir, what have you, then I ask the question, see, what preparations have you done? Because, sir, I have prepared 500 SRTs. I have prepared 500 WATs. I have given 200 stories. Menanka, buddy, you have been wrong in life. What have you done to improve your personality? That question we are not able to answer. So please, in case you all are aspiring to become part of the elite defense forces, improve your personality. And that will in turn help you to clear the SSB. And the whole approach of this Dux Academy is in that. One more example I will just give you. Sir, a person will call up my organization and ask, sir, what is your course program? How do you do and all that? So I said, this is so-and-so, this way. So he said, okay, sir, I will join next month. I said, why? He said, sir, my SSB dates have not come. I say, hello. I mean, that is the best situation to be in. So your SSB dates have not come. So you have got time to prepare your personality. So my take is start early, get on the right path so that 6 to 8 months or 1 year, you give yourself, prepare, and thereafter go and give your SSB. I'm 100% sure that you will get recommended. So please don't wait for the last time. Sir, I will give one interview just before going to the SSB. Hello. if a problem comes out in your personality, where do you have the time to improve on your personality? So these are the things that I feel that somewhere the aspirants have gone wrong in the way they are preparing for the SSB. So the whole idea of this organization is to get them on the right path. And that is why the name of Direction Under it. Give you the direction, the right direction. Yeah. I hope that answers your question, Akash.
Yes, sir. So there are a few questions, the aspirants asked me when I told, you are coming on the interview. So there are a few GTO related questions that they have asked me. So I'll just put it to you. You can, give your perspective about those questions. So, yeah. Sir, the first question is regarding GPE, that the group planning exercise. So, there are a lot of, problem statement given in that GP, that brief that is given to us. There are some important priorities, some are low priority. Say किसी की गाय यहाँ पे अटक गई है तो उसको बचाना है. All those priority comes in. But the GT will never tell you, कि date, कि क्या distance है, क्या time है, वो सब mention करना या इस तरीके से ये format में लिखना. But there are a lot of coaching institute blogs writing, this is the format. But no GTO has ever told this in a brief. This is how you have to write. So what is your take on that? How do we handle GP?
Yes, I mean, obviously there is no set format. And I have been a GTO and taken phenomenal live batches out there. And the moment you see at the sheet of paper, you come to know, yes, this is all preconceived way of writing. See, my take on this would be logical out there. I mean, and write in detail, because two things are there. Why you write out there? One is to ensure that once you write down, you have committed yourself to whatever thought process has gone out in your mind. And thereafter, you will be able to recollect when you're doing the discussion. Second thing, it also gives a very clear indication to the GTO, the situational awareness that you have. I'm using the word, very important word, which many of the GTOs don't tell. The situational awareness of the model which is there as to how you perceive those situations. With what detail are you writing there? Whether you have understood all the essentials of that problem. Are you able to understand what exactly the situation and what kind of possibilities would be there when you solve it? So most of the time, the candidates, whatever coaching institutes and people tell, they leave out on many of the essentials, the details which are required. They don't go in depth as to how they have to solve the problem. It's all in the superficial level. Because if you write in the superficial level, you will not be able to translate all that during the discussion also. There will be some kind of gap. So if you write, say 80% after understanding this, you will be speaking on that 80%, only 60% you will be able to translate when you're discussing. And that famous fish market, which all of you call, is always there. So in that fish market, you will have to come up with the solution in detail. So many of the times, the whole discussion peters down to in the superficial level. Maximum the people do is inform regarding the problem to some of the authorities. Again, you are joining the different forces to become that authority whom people are informing. And here you are come here to clear the SSB of being an informant. We will inform the police. We will inform the sarpanch. We will inform the bank. We will inform the railway authorities. We will inform the people. Hello. Are you there to inform? Or in the defense, we are the people who are informed by other people. So you have to start thinking as to what actions you are going to take. And that is a very, very important aspect which many of the people miss out there in the group planning exercise. And always remember, any task that you do in the group planning exercise, in the GTO series, there are two aspects you need to keep in mind. One of the aspect is the clarity of thought, which is an essential part of when you are discussing it. Clarity of thought. What is it that I have, the problem statement which has been given? What is it that I have to do so that 100% that problem will be solved? And the second thing is this clarity of thought, how you can translate in a group. In that melee of the fish market. How with assertiveness, with being assertive, without become part of the problem of shouting like others, you are able to tell others what you want to say logically.
Correct.
And these two aspects has to be in the right understood in the right perspective for you to clear this group learning exercise.
Correct.
So discussion and understanding the problem statement and understanding the essentials of the resources that have been given and how you solve it. Yes.
So that answers my question of GP part. So we spoke about the command task. What exactly is the purpose of command task? You have seen the candidate performing in progressive group task, half group task. You know what the capability of a candidate is among the 10 people, but still we go ahead with the command task. So what is the purpose of command task, and what are you testing there?
See, again, command task is a unique feature. It is one of the parts of the individual kind of tasks. So the first 4 tasks that you have is everything is in a group. That is the group discussion, the group planning, the progressive group task, and the group obstacle race, or the snake race, what we call, where each one of you can decide as to what role you want to play in the whole group. Whether you want to talk in the group discussion or you don't want to talk in the group discussion, whether you want to shout your way through or you want to tell things assertively in a logical manner with confidence. Group planning exercise may, do you make a superficial plan? It is left up to, or you make a complex, detailed plan out there, taking all aspects. In the progressive group, you can decide whether you want to go ahead, stand back, go left, go right, not talk. You can take a role. Snake race, may you can decide as to where you want to be in the first, last, or you want to hold the snake, shout the war cry. What is it? As and when we keep doing it all, we are forcing things on you. In fact, command task is the only task in which the GTO decides which task you have to go to. Even in the individual obstacles, you decide which obstacle you want to do. In the lecturate, you decide which topic you want to speak on. Understood? But in the command task, the GTO decides which task you have to go to. You can't decide. So that is the time. What he sees is, have you understood? So there are 3-4 things that could be looked at. I'm not saying that is the one which you look at, but could be looked at. It could be seeing whether you are able to solve complex problems or not. It could be used to see whatever he has understood about you when you were doing the group task, whether what he has understood about your personality is confirming or not by giving you a command task. It could be also used to understand whether you have understood what has to be done. What does it take for the essentials of the problem which is there, and understand and thereafter implement it correctly or not. It could be used to understand how well you are in organizing your thoughts onto the practical ground, because it is not to command. One thing command task is not about is to command people. So that is one more places where people go wrong. They start commanding people out there. Gentlemen, please come here. Please don't break rules. Follow whatever I am doing. I am the commander for this task. Please lift up the plank, lift up the balli, lift up the rope. I will tell you when to go ahead. See, sorry. Again, it is not to command people. It is to see as to how you show your leadership skills, how you show your solution and problem solving skills, how you show your actual personality, because that is the time the GTO gets a chance to see whatever he has understood about your personality very, very clearly, because the focus is on you and you are forced to complete the task. So that is how the command task has to be looked at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, usually command task में ये होता है कि people ask कि should I ask my subordinates to go in front and guide them, or I will lead and wherever I need help. So वो question बार-बार आता है. So you made it very clear.
See, the task has been given to you. It is your responsibility to do the task. We want to look at you, not at your teammates who are doing the task.
Correct.
Understood? So the best. So see, there is nothing wrong in the SSB. There is no. Only thing is, what could be the best thing done? The best thing that could be done is, you are given the responsibility of doing the task. you do it with the help of the others. Obviously, you can't do things alone. You can't hold the bully, the plank, and the rope tight. Also, all those things you can't do it. So you are given some two of the people to do it. That's about it. But the responsibility is yours. So we want you to do it.
Okay.
So that would be the best way to do a command task. But obviously, if you're not able to do, then thereafter it starts getting diluted. And some point in time, we realize, yes, the problem-solving capabilities, the kind of personality he's there, it is not meeting the requirements of the defense services.
Okay. Okay.
So one has to understand as to when you're coming down and when you are crossing the threshold and coming below that. Yeah.
Okay. So just few questions on the the interview part. So there are a lot of people in the IO will ask you if you're going for a Navy interview about technical stuff. If you're going for a pilot entry, they'll ask you about aircraft. If you're going for normal Navy, they will ask you about the ships and submarines and everything. So how does one prepare for it? To what detail should they know? If you could just help us understand, because you were part of that system.
See, again, very important. So first of all, I want to tell you all the three services require a lot of technical knowledge, whether you like it or not. Because nowadays, the defense forces are becoming highly technical. A lot of high technology weapons, high technology sensors, high technology platforms, network-centric warfare. So all these things are parcel of the defense forces in today's environment. So you have to have that technical bent of mind, apart from being that adventurous bent of mind, to take on the risk, calculated risks, which we talk about. So yeah, so one of the things why we ask these questions is to see your motivation level as to you are going to be part of the defense services minimum if you're a short service commission officer of 10 or 14 years, and if you're a permanent commission officer, minimum 20 years. So have you understood what would be my job profile, what kind of equipment that I would be working at, or any interest that you show that yes, I mean, I'm interested in this and I want to make it part of my life. So that is one of them. So second aspect is, do you have the technical bent of mind to understand the theory that you have learned in your engineering colleges and your other colleges and school, whether you are able to relate that to the weapons and the sensors and the platforms that we have out in the defense forces. So we want to know that. And third important thing is, have you done justice to your engineering? Because we always hear, sir, he has done an engineering, but he's unemployable. Mm-hmm. So many of the times the candidates come to me, what have you been doing? Sir, I've been preparing for my SSB. For how long? Sir, past 2 years. I passed out in 2018 engineering and now it's 2020. What have you? Sir, campus placement. Sir, I wanted to prepare, so I gave myself the drop. Okay, very good. You are motivated. Okay, tell me 3 naval ships. And then he will start hunting for the word. Sir, Vikramaditya? Or sir, is it INS Virat? Virat got decommissioned ages back. Vikrant before that. The next Vikrant is not yet commissioned. Which fighter aircraft? Sir, Rafale. What is Rafale? That I don't know, sir. Which missile does India have, which is going to take on our adversaries? Sir, some Agni series is there, sir. See, I mean, like, it is as if, superficial knowledge. So, what is it that we want to know, whether you have understood? Say, a mechanical engineer comes. The first thing that he should be interested in Navy is the propulsion system that the Navy has. Or if he's going to the Air Force, what kind of engines are in a Rafale or in a MiG-29, or what kind of engines are we having in a Chinook helicopter? So he should be interested in that. His own job for which he has studied for 4 years. So we want to see that correlation between this and that. So that is the reason we ask all these questions about the forces.
Correct.
So technically, are you sound or not? Yes.
Correct. Got a point, sir. So some more question on the GTO part. Okay. So you spoke about the individual obstacle. I have seen people doing only 3, doing only 4. How do you evaluate them? There are people who are getting recommended with doing only 2 or 3 tasks. So what part of assessment do you do when you see a candidate doing all those tasks? What do you look at them?
See, one of the most important things about individual obstacles is how you do the task, not how many you do the task.
Mhm.
So this is again where people go wrong. How, sir, I did 15, but how you did it? Sir, I did 5. Say, for example, if I ask you openly, if you do 4 obstacles, there's one candidate who does 4 obstacles, and there's another candidate who does 1 obstacle. Who is better? Your question should be which of the 4 obstacles he has done.
Correct.
Suppose a person does number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. If you add this, he comes to 10 total. And the other candidate does only 1, which is number 10. Whom do you think is better?
The one who has done the 10th one.
Suppose he does only number 9. Now this guy has done number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and he has got 10 points. The other candidate has done number 9, the commando walk only. Who do you think is better?
Again, the who has done the commando walk.
You understand? So the number doesn't matter. It is which obstacle and how you have done it. With what confidence level have you done that obstacle? If you have done number 9, shaking, sitting, crawling on it, it's another matter. But if you do it with confidently and you're running on that obstacle, your confidence level is high. Your courage factor, you're able to withstand challenges, your ability to take on challenges is high. So how you do it? Both of them have done number 9. But thereafter, my thing is how he has done number 9. Each one of them. That is what is more important in a individual obstacle rather than going behind the numbers.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my final question to you would be, what advice you would like to give to the aspirants? How do we prepare? Because there are a lot of information out there. There are a lot of people who will say contradicting thing as well. How do you make sure you are on the right track? What will be your basic mantra?
See, I would give this with one very simple anecdote or an analogy. Say you are want to get operated with some doctor. Will you go to a quack at a person who's not actually a doctor, but he has got a lot of practice and he has done some, or you will go to a genuine doctor?
A genuine doctor.
Genuine doctor. So similarly here, please find out in the environment who is the genuine guy who's giving you the right advice. Because I find in the social media, in various platforms of electronic platforms, a lot of things that are going there is all wrong. Wrong information, wrong things. Just to impress the candidates, a lot of people are saying hundreds of things. Please, you have to identify what is it. Get on the right track as fast as possible. Understand. Like, for example, I'll just give you one more. If you have cleared CDS GK exam or another any, does not mean your GK is good for the SSB. Because a GK for SSB is different for a GK for written exam. So many people go wrong. I have cleared my CDS exam for GK. I am good at it. But that GK is not relevant anymore in the SSB. So please try to understand what is required out of you. Like, for example, if you are giving a JEE exam, 105 cutoff. If I'm getting 90 marks, 95 marks, I have got a chance. But there is a 105 cutoff. Then you go and attempt it. But you should know what is it required in the SSB. And thereafter prepare towards that. Last 1 month preparation, half a day, 15 days preparation will not work. Get on the right track, the right direction. Understand what is the requirement and 3-4 aspects. Improve your personality. Again, one important thing, improve your vocabulary and English. This is again a very, very important aspect. English grammatical mistakes, not making the right words. So prepare for if you want to be an aspirant, because so I'm not saying local language Hindi, yes, you can speak, because many of the talk we do it in Hindi. But the instructions, the way you speak, the diction, the flow with which you speak, improve on that. Because you will all be, say, a fighter aircraft guy would be on a mic here, talking to the people. A naval officer would be standing on a mic, giving instructions to people who are in the deck. An army person would be there on the walkie-talkie, instructing his men to do the operations, or inside a tank, giving command to people. So your voice, your flow has to be very important. So prepare on your English, whatever you, I mean, I'm not saying, so you should be having a confidence in whatever, say Hindi mein bhi bol sakte, nothing wrong in it. So, but whenever you talk in Hindi and English, तो जब हिंदी में बोल रहे हो तो हिंदी में अच्छा बोलो, जब इंग्लिश में बोल रहे हो तो इंग्लिश में अच्छा बोलो. Don't mix that and make a khichdi out of it. Okay, so that is one important aspect, and get on the right direction. कि क्या चाहिए? Half the people don't know as to what is it that they are getting into. So that would be my major advice.
There are a lot of coaching institutes that are run by a lot of different people, but has the the selection rate increased, or it is the same? Because there are a lot of people out there training a lot of guys.
See, I mean, again, a very good question. If I'm coaching everybody, everybody should get recommended. But see, everybody goes to all these coaching institutes for clearing IIT. Does everybody get recommended in IIT?
No.
I mean, they're the best premier institutions. There, and Kota and Andhra and all these places. See, finally, what a mentor, a right mentor. So first of all is to get a right mentor who can tell you your problems. Many times it is that everybody is sitting in a classroom, some gyan is given, and then after finish off, okay, do well, you are there, read GK, improve your communication skill, go out. But how to improve that communication? What is the exact problem here? So getting a right mentor is a first step. Who can tell you these things? Okay, and thereafter, I always give this story. See, you can make a horse go to the water, but you can't make it drink. So the drinking part you people have to do. So रास्ते पे I can get you. मैं रास्ते में लेके आ सकता हूँ, पर भागना आपने है. But my way is कि मैं इतना भगाऊंगा कि आप थक जाओगे. So you will be tired. So you will end up drinking the water. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, finally out there when the whole process, I got a process in which the whole training takes place, and various aspects of the whole training. And very shortly, so I had this concept which I was telling people. I was happy that my concept is working. But somewhere down the line, I realized that there's one thing which is missing in the concept which I am teaching. And that was a very, very important aspect. And that is performance in the SSB on that day. Many candidates of mine who are potentially 100%, if they had come to the SSB, they would have got cleared. But unfortunately, that day they didn't perform. Sir, आपने बताया था, but I didn't remember. उस टाइम पे मुझे याद नहीं आया, sir. I didn't remember that. You had told me that, sir. But unfortunately, sir, वो इतना जल्दी things were going on कि वो याद नहीं आया. मैं सोच रहा था I will tell that, but वो हुआ नहीं, sir. So performing on that day is a very important aspect which I have included in my whole philosophy of training. You have to perform on that day. So your mental frame of mind has to be good. And that is why I say, start early. Give yourself 6 months to 1 year and constant pressure, so that when the pressure is there out there in the GTO ground or the interview or when you're giving the site test, naturally the right things comes out of it. Understood?
Yeah. So before we conclude, if you can just tell us if somebody wants to join your guidance program, how can they do it? How can they approach? And if you can just briefly tell that.
So see, it's a whole online course. It is there. I mean, the whole thing starts every Monday. Every Monday to Friday morning 6:30, like an actual GTO ground. The SSB is there, and the whole thing is online from 6:30 in the morning to about 10:30 in the morning. And thereafter, I will tell you a few tips on doing the psychological tests. And thereafter, conduct a mock test of yours. Thereafter, that test goes to one of the psychologists whom I have got. I got DRDO scientists, people who have retired, and as a technical officer, whom we call as psychologists, the uniformed psychologists who are there with you in uniform. So it goes to them. They evaluate, and thereafter give you the direction for preparation and where all are your limitations limitations and weaknesses, and how you prepare. That gyan is given to you. And I also carry out a mock test, and thereafter try to see your PIQ forms, because the starting point for a psych test and an interview is the PIQ form. So many times, nearly all the candidates who go don't fill up their PIQ forms correctly. So the whole advice is given as to individually, one-to-one. See, the psych technique ka feedback and the interview ka feedback and the PIQ ka feedback is given one-to-one. Personal feedback of at least minimum 1 to 2 hours. Sometimes I've given it for 3 hours also for some of the candidates. And thereafter I give that how to fill up the PIQ form, how to relate this PIQ form to the interview, how to relate this PIQ form to the psychological tests, which is a very, very important aspect. So all these things takes place about 8 days. Thereafter, I also give you one of the most important aspects of the SSB is the stage 1, where the maximum rejections take place. So what are the ways in which you can clear that ever elusive stage 1? Okay, so yeah. So all these things take place in a period of 8 days, and thereafter you can also get into a mentorship program which goes on for 3 months or 6 months, where one-to-one feedback whenever you want. Night 12 o'clock it can be given. And people have asked me in the evening, tomorrow they're standing in front of the SSB gate, and sir, one last doubt before I enter, and they take my mobile phones. Sir, how do I handle this? That is also answered. Okay, so I had one doubt, sir. So that is also answered. So this is every Monday program, and the phone numbers and all will be shared to you, and you can contact the organization Dux Academy, and thereafter part with. Let me assure you, you will not go disappointed, because one aspect of is clearing the SSB, but there are in the course there are so many life lessons for you that you will do better in life in whichever field you are in. That much I will assure you.
Okay.
And I will promise you. And in case you don't feel satisfied, you don't have to pay me a single rupee. That is a guarantee that I'm giving you. If you're not satisfied with the mentorship which I will give you. So I don't transform people. I just get them on the right path. Everybody can get recommended, provided you get on the right path. We don't require only one type of personality. We need many types of personality. So please don't try to be like someone else. So here, I don't transform, I don't change anything, I don't do any of these things. In whatever field you are in, I ensure you that is the field that will ensure you to get to the recommended level.
Okay. So thanks a lot for your time, sir, today. And I hope a lot of aspirants will, get benefited out of this video. Thanks a lot again, sir.
I really hope so. Yeah. I really hope so. I really hope so. And Akash, I must thank you for giving this opportunity to get the message across to the thousands of people who are out there, and hope this small message of mine would go a long way in their lives to transform their lives for the better, or their aspirations to become part of the defense forces. So I in whichever little way that I can.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Jai Hind.